There's a saying in life, and it's about lemons. I know you've heard it. It's when you get lemons, you make lemonade. We all do it, and we apply it in our lives, our work lives, personal and private, whether we're in the courtroom or if we're in the line at Chick-fil-A. It's one thing that we have in common, and that is that we go through things. Welcome to Hidden Parts, the podcast. My name is Sean Monet, and today's special guest is J. Wyndal Gordan, the warrior lawyer, Baltimore's own. He has an extensive resume and experiences. He's going to sit with us today to talk about what it means to him to be a defense attorney, what works, what doesn't work, why he loves it so much, but more importantly, the hidden part of what makes him himself. Join us. Hi, welcome to Hidden Parts, the podcast. I'm Sean Monet, and I welcome you. Today, I also welcome our special guest, J. Wyndal Gordan, the warrior lawyer. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
A Baltimore hero, a true Baltimore hero.
I made hero status?
For me,
okay.
And for a lot of people, because
you
do things that the ordinary person wouldn't want to do. You know, but at the end of the day, as a defense attorney, some may call you a villain, some, well, not savior level, but still, you have compassion for people and you see the person. So it's a humanistic piece about you that people don't realize you have. You know, there's still somebody's child, you know, somebody's husband, mother, father, what have you. And you see past all of what I guess is alleged at the time. And you see that person and you want to help them, and that's big.
A good friend of mine, Demario Solomon Simmons, an attorney out in Oklahoma, he says, a good lawyer answers questions, but a great lawyer answers prayers. And I think that, not to say that we're God or anything, or have a God complex, but through God we answer prayers. So when the prayers go up, we get to working.
Hey, I'm a firm believer.
We get to working.
Of prayers going up.
Me too. And you see it all the time in this business. You know when people are praying. You win cases you should lose, you know, and things happen that ordinarily do not happen. Things just start to move in place in a certain way. And you start to understand that God is real. So you got to keep God in your life as a defense attorney. It's very important because things happen all the time. Sometimes they don't always go the way you expect them to go, but God is in all of it.
Absolutely. So Jay, when did you get the call? How old were you when you said, you know what, this is my lane?
That's interesting you ask that. I get to ask that question a lot.
Really?
Yeah, I get asked a lot. When I was 14 years old, I decided I was going to be an attorney. And the interesting thing about it is that I didn't know what attorneys did. There were no attorneys in my family. My parents were educated, but they didn't know any attorneys. But it was something that was birthed in me that just made the decision for me. So I always say that I didn't choose law. Law chose me. And now that I've become a lawyer, there's nothing else that I can do. I can barely screw in a light bulb. So.
No, I don't believe that.
So there's nothing else that I can do in this world. And I think that's why I work so hard to do it well, because it's really my sole vocation and my avocation. So, and I enjoy it. In fact, if it wasn't my job, it would definitely be my hobby.
Wow. Wow. So how does it work? A person in trouble comes to your office and they seek guidance or counsel. Is it ever an opportunity for you to say no when they come, or how does it work in terms of you choosing cases?
Well, I consider myself a trial lawyer. So I'm not solely a criminal defense lawyer. I'm not solely a personal injury lawyer or malpractice lawyer or a civil rights lawyer. I practice law in all of those areas. Most of the times when I'm called, if it's a criminal case, people are looking for assistance. They're in trouble. They think they're in a situation that is almost insurmountable. But when I talk to them, with my experience now, 28 years, I can kind of tell you what's going to happen from the short run to the long run. So it puts a lot of people at ease. And my goal is that when you come to me, You may come in feeling a certain way, but I always want you to leave feeling a little better than you did when you came in. And that's my goal. I never sell doom and gloom. Some lawyers say, well, it's going to be doom and gloom unless you pay me X amount of dollars. I never sell that. I'm going to tell you what it is and what it isn't, but I'm also tell you that, there is hope. And I want you to leave with hope, because nothing is ever as bad as it seems, especially if you have a good lawyer. It's never going to be as bad. Yeah.
And you have those prayers behind you that we spoke
Prayers,
about earlier.
yeah, prayers, they carry the day.
Yeah,
They carry
absolutely.
the day.
Absolutely.
I was in court today. I thought I was going to be in trial. The prosecutor had offered my guy a suspended sentence for some drugs that were found in his house, and we weren't going to accept it. And so the case was scheduled for trial. We had to hang around court for about 3 hours. I'm down in the jail visiting my client. We're getting ourselves together for trial because I wanted him to testify in a motions hearing, because I felt as though the drugs were recovered illegally in violation of his Fourth Amendment rights. So we're sitting up getting prepared, getting a little last minute preparation together. We get called back up to the courtroom. I'm thinking we're ready to go to trial, and the state dismisses the case right there. It's like, what?
Wow.
I've been here for 3 hours from 8:30 to like 11:30 waiting to go to trial. And she dismissed the case just like that. She said, well, I had a chance to consider the evidence and the arguments that Mr. Gordan was making, and we just decided that we had insufficient evidence to move forward, so she dismissed it. But that's the same thing I told her at 8:30 when I came in there, that they didn't have the evidence. But 3 hours later, she got the story, and we're results oriented. So however long it takes, as long as we get that dismissal, we're happy, all the same.
So you mentioned the process, but some of us don't know the process. So person gets charges filed against them, then they're
They call
indicted.
the warrior lawyer.
They call the warrior lawyer.
Yeah, you gotta have that.
So then what happens? The state, it's their job to prosecute, your job in this instance to defend. Okay.
What happens, I'll bring them in for an interview, talk to them about what happened. They'll tell me what they think happened, and I'll tell them what I think happened, and we'll kind of marry our ideas to come up with a defense. And a lot of times we can do that because the law is malleable in some respect. Like, you don't have to your conduct doesn't have to be foursquare within the law. As long as you can bring it within the law, then you can kind of defend your cases. So, for instance, if you're in a self-defense situation, you say, oh, I was just fighting. Well, why were you fighting? Oh, because he pushed me. Well, tell me that. Because if he pushed you, then no longer are you in an aggressive position. Like, he put you in a position to have to defend yourself. So you can defend yourself, self-defense. But you just tell me you're fighting, I don't know what that is. I don't know who started it, who ended it. I don't know it. But if I ask more questions, I can figure out the details of it. When the details come out, and I can figure, okay, there is a self-defense situation here. Well, I got in his face, but I didn't hit him. Or he could say, well, the guy got in my face, but he didn't hit me. I hit him first. I said, but did he place you in fear? Did you think he was going to hit you? Yeah, I thought he was going to hit you. Well, that's an assault because he placed you in reasonable apprehension of fear. So you can even hit him. You don't have to take a punch to give a punch. You don't have to wait till somebody socks you in the eye to defend yourself. If you feel threatened by that person and your threat and the way that you feel is reasonable, then you have a right to defend yourself without even taking a punch. You can throw the first punch. So that's why I say the law is not always as you think. You have
Cut and dry.
Yeah, you got to listen to what people say and figure it out. Well, Jay, I really didn't feel threatened by him. Well, maybe that's what we need to say. Think about it real hard. When you go home, you think about whether or not you felt threatened, and that's why you threw that first punch.
Yeah.
And then they'll figure it out. Yeah, upon second thought, yeah, I did feel a little threatened. Say, okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
That's the defense.
So you have to be creative.
You definitely have to be creative. And when I was a kid, I was very creative. I used to draw. I used to paint. No, I don't do it anymore. I played the saxophone. I did all kinds of stuff.
Do you play now, the sax?
No, I'm not even going to say I do.
Wow.
I know how to hold it. I know how to tickle it a little bit. But when I was younger, I was good. I used to play in the go-go band. I'm from the D.C. area. So I used to play the saxophone in the go-go band and whatnot. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, I always...
So I had that creative side to me. And it works in law because you have, like you said, you do have to be creative. You have to be able to think things through, you know, based upon experience, human behavior. You have to think about how people think about certain situations. And I always use the scenario of someone being robbed. Like when someone's being robbed and a gun is put in their face, they're looking at that gun. They could tell you all day what that gun looked. It was black. You could probably tell you the rifling characteristics inside the barrel, but they can't tell you what the person looked like who's holding the gun. See? They tell you about that gun, but they can't tell you what that face looked like because they're afraid of what's going to happen with that gun. So whether your client was the person who robbed them or not, there's an identification issue because they really didn't get to look at the person's face. So you can defend cases like that, just dealing with human behavior. And after a while, you're like, well, you know, I guess I really didn't see who did it. Did you see the person in this room who robbed you? They're looking around the room. After telling you all the details about the gun. I can't say for certain. Not guilty.
But I can describe that gun.
You know what that gun looked like. Wow. And it's really, people say, Jay, how can you defend somebody who you know committed a criminal act? And I always tell people it's not the criminal act. I defend the Constitution. The Constitution says that you have a right to zealous representation, to fair representation, adequate representation. You have constitutional rights to remain silent. If the state's going to bring charges against you, then they have to prove it. So it becomes that situation. Can you prove it? Doesn't matter whether you did it or not, because my cases are always bigger than the person who's sitting at the trial table with me. I defend the Constitution. I defend the client's right to have you prove your case beyond reasonable doubt. And beyond reasonable doubt is the highest burden in our judicial system, in our justice system. It's a very high burden. And it's very hard to overcome. But if you can't meet that burden, you're not going to get this guy on my watch. You know what I mean? And so that's just the nature of the beast. That's how the system works. And so if the state cannot prove its case, then they can't convict. It doesn't matter whether he did it or not. But it works in the reverse too. Sometimes people who didn't do anything because they are not well defended. And Warren Brown, a good friend of mine, attorney in Baltimore, he always says the truth not well defended will lose. And that always resonated with me because it's so true. If you go into court and you don't have the proper representation, even though you're telling the truth, you figure I can do this because truth is I didn't do anything. And you think you can handle it yourself. If you don't defend yourself well, you will lose.
Yeah, big
so
time.
That's why an attorney is important. And defense attorney is even more important. Because we stand in the gap for you. We make it so that all the freedoms that you have in the Bill of Rights, the right to free speech, the right to be protected against unreasonable searches and seizures, the right to counsel, the right to remain silent. We make sure that those rights are respected in the court of law. And we make sure that you're not hauled off to jail indefinitely without probable cause, without due process of law. Because without our laws in place and someone to defend them, the state would do whatever they wanted, whether you were guilty of anything or not.
Yep.
So I always say defense attorneys we're one of the most noble professions in the law because we make sure that the Constitution is upheld and that our guarantees are honored. That's what we do.
And it sounds easy as you say it. You just rambled it off. You rambled it off like it was just like a piece of pie. But it's hard. It's hard work. And at the end of the day, you still have to go home.
Yeah.
And you still have feelings. You still have a family, you know. How do you separate the two?
You can't always. If you really have passion for what you do, you can't. You take it home with you, and you suffer through it, and you work it out, and you come up with answers. And whoever I'm with, they're going to be into it too. They're going to be thinking about it because I'm going to be talking about it, and they're going to be sleeping thinking about it. And they say, well, they might get out of their sleep and say, well, why wouldn't you do this? Or what do you think about that? I'm like, God damn it, you're right. That's good. You know? So I was like, I incorporate some of what they say into my defense, because they're looking at the case the same way a jury would. They're fresh. They're just hearing about it. What is your gut reaction? What is your visceral reaction to what you heard? How would you respond to those stimuli or circumstances? And sometimes, for instance, women, they are very intuitive, and they have certain understandings of things that sometimes we miss as men. For instance, I had a murder case, attempted murder case in Prince George's County. The guy was accused of dousing his girlfriend in gasoline and burning her while she's in the bathtub. Yeah, and so I remember there's a picture of the tub, and it had this sheen over it. And I said, well, I really don't want to get into that sheen over the tub, because they might say it's gasoline from petroleum. And this lady who was helping me with the case, she said, Jay, you see all those shampoo bottles around there? The shampoo bottles melted. That's shampoo. That sheen is from shampoo and baby, not baby oil, but you got bath oils. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I said, God damn it, you're right. You're right. I missed it, because I ain't thinking like that. I'm thinking maybe it's sheen. But she was right, because you see the melted bottles, so yeah, you can't tell me that that's gasoline. When you got all those melted bottles. But the burden of proof. Yeah, the burden of proof is very high, beyond reasonable doubt. So it's not like you could just say, oh, this is gasoline. You got to prove it. Everything that happens in court needs to be proven. It's not the court of say-so. It's not the court of public opinion. It's the court of proof. It's the court of law. So you have to prove it. And that's what I tell juries all the time. They have to prove it. Don't do their work for them. If you have more questions at the end of the case that you had before the case started, then they haven't done their job. I found them not guilty.
Okay, so I mean, I agree about talking through things.
You gotta
that
talk through
perspective
things.
Is everything.
Yeah,
So it
and
does
the more
help.
people you talk to, the better, because as I said, everybody's looking at the case fresh, even a jury. So when you talk to people about it, you show them, give them a factual scenario, add the good, bad, and indifferent, and let them sort it out. If they say my client's guilty, I'm gonna ask somebody else. I might say, okay, you feel like he's guilty. What would we need to show so that you would feel like he's not guilty? Well, if this happened, that happened, that. Well, that may have happened. Let's move this piece here, move that piece there, and move this piece there. Now what you think? Oh yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're very, very good. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah,
I also want to take time to congratulate you, because I understand that you just won Vice President of the Bar Association.
Yeah, the National Bar Association.
The National Bar Association.
Yeah, we represent the interests of 65,000 black lawyers across the country, actually across the world. And so I'm very proud of that. I ran for that over the summer, and I was successful in the election, won by 9 votes.
Wow.
So it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, so I really take pride in that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, is it something more for you to do outside of you?
It keeps me busy, because I'm going to tell you the truth, I did not appreciate how much work was involved. I just thought that I could just fly around the country and give speeches and that would be it. But I got to do work. And I'm spending about an hour a night on that stuff. And I think that's what it's going to take to do it right. But I'm going to give it my best.
Yeah,
I'm going to give it my best, yeah. And you know, I'm glad that I won. And next time I'm coming for president. I ain't going to be number 2 for long. I'm going to tell you that right now. And you know who I'm talking to. I'm coming for your spot.
Heard that. What else you got going on?
That's it. You know what I mean? That's it for the most part.
Okay. So in terms of balance, I know you said you take it home, but you still, sometimes you have to decompress and walk away. What do you do for fun?
Not while the camera's rolling.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So
I do the same thing that everybody else does.
All right.
I like to sleep. I like to watch TV. I like to go to the movies. I like to go out for dinner. I like to party. We're having a big party this weekend, September the 2nd. Y'all come on through. September the 2nd. If you ain't got nothing better to do on September the 2nd, this ain't got nothing better to do backyard barbecue. Come on in, bring a lawn chair. We got live entertainment. food, drink, cigar vendors, hookah vendors, and good time.
Wow.
Yeah, in Bowie, Maryland. September 2nd from 3 until dusk. Big man Calvin's going to be there. He's going to be on the cameras, making sure we have the event memorialized.
That's Chosen Media, by the way. Shameless plug.
There you go. Oh, Chosen Media. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's right. You got to give up that cut, bro. You got to give up that cut.
Hey. Well, that's good. That sounds like it's going to be nice.
Yeah, it's going to be real nice. And you should come too. Bring your family.
I'm going to try and roll through.
There you go.
Hey, I might even ask if I can bring my podcast. No. Okay. That's a no. Negative.
Nah, I'm thinking about that. That would be interesting. Why wouldn't you?
I don't know. People may not want to talk. They want to have fun.
That might be a good idea.
We could talk.
We'd probably be running 2 podcasts because we was thinking about doing ours.
Really?
Yeah, we actually had that conversation last night.
Well, my studio is open to you if you need.
I appreciate it. It's a y'all. This is a nice studio. I wasn't even expecting this. I thought I was going to some dark room. It's going to be painted, everything painted black, and black curtains over the, black sheets over the windows and stuff. I didn't know. So this is very nice.
Those that know Chamonix.
There you go. You don't do it like that.
Don't roll like that.
Yeah. But I would have come just the same though.
Not to do a half-ass. Not to say other
I ain't
people
saying
do
they
a
was
half-ass.
half-assed. Don't tell me yelling at me. I ain't saying.
I'm not saying that either, but to my standard. And thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, it's real nice. We got something to drink. We had some fruit salad in there. It was real nice. Yes, indeed.
It's all good, just for you. So I want to ask you about the latest, the squeegee worker defense.
Oh, yeah.
You absolutely saved that man's life. You and Mr. Warren Brown.
We realized that after the fact, because we just don't like losing. Anything. I mean, we won 3 out of 3. And we did escape the murder conviction. We did escape the second-degree murder conviction. All the murder convictions we escaped. They got us on the voluntary manslaughter and handgun use and commission of the crime of violence and handgun possession under 21. And so, but what that showed was what we were saying the entire time. And that is, that the prosecutor's office weaponized their authority to go after this kid because they knew they couldn't make out a first-degree murder case. Ray Charles knew that, but that was the only charge that would force this kid to be tried as an adult. If they had charged him with second-degree murder, he would have been tried in juvenile court. Anything less than first-degree murder would have required him to be tried in juvenile court. So even though they knew they would lose, they rather try a charge that they could not win just so that he could be tried in adult court and be treated as an adult when he was 14 years old at the time of the offense. So I really have disdain for that administration for doing that to one of our children when he used to be one of our children.
Yeah.
So I don't like that administration for that. I do like Ivan Bates as a person. I've known him for a long time, but I don't like what that office did to this young child.
So, and I want to be clear that I'm not choosing a side because there was a life lost.
Well, there was a life given. I really don't have a lot of sympathy for what the guy did, and maybe that's why that's why I had Warren with me, because I can't hide it. This man, he was the only adult on the scene. He had plenty of time to think about what he was doing. He walked across 8 lanes of traffic during rush hour, nearly causing an accident just to get across the street with his baseball bat, swinging it, holding it in a menacing fashion, threatening these kids, and actually hitting at least one of the kids twice. And he gets shot and killed. And they charged my 14-year-old for that offense. Now, the jury found that my 14-year-old was the shooter. Okay, fine. But it wasn't like my 14-year-old was out looking for trouble. And thank God he had a gun on that day, and I'll say that on this record. I'm not afraid to say it. Because if he didn't, we could have looked at probably 5 funerals as opposed to 1. And because some adult decided that because of his personal views about squeegees and his lack of respect for their own humanity, for the humanity of these children. He goes after these children unprovoked with a metal baseball bat. He's 6'3", 329 pounds. 6'3", I'm 6'2". My kid was 14 years old. He was maybe 5'4", 5'5", and 120 pounds. This guy was almost 3 times his weight. And he's coming after them with a baseball bat. And if you had a gun nearby and he's coming after you or your friends, what you gonna do? Just let him bat your friends down and say, let the police take care of it? Are you counting bullets? It took 5 bullets to get him on the ground. We've seen people shot far more than that. And we've seen police officers claim self-defense. Trained police officers are given more consideration than a young man who's fighting for either his life or the life of his children. We allow trained police officers to use self-defense and say nothing about it. But someone who's not trained is just trying to save himself, who determined that his life was more valuable than the person who's trying to take it. Okay? We determined that he should be charged with first-degree murder. He should be a murderer. That doesn't sit with me. That doesn't sit with me. So I take sides.
Okay.
And you don't have to.
No,
but I take
I'm
sides.
going to sit in the middle, because that's just how I am. I have opinions for both sides. So,
yeah. So I think most people's thing was, well, was a 14-year-old dealing with a gun? Well, yeah, if you feel as though he shouldn't have had a gun, charged with handgun possession, let him go. Because that's what the real crime was, illegal possession. But that's not murder. That's not first-degree, second-degree murder. Now, the jury found that he had the right to use force, but he misjudged his force. He used more force than reasonably necessary. And that's how he got convicted with manslaughter. Not that he didn't have the right to use it, but he used more force because they said he was shot 5 times. Well, the 5 shots came out in rapid succession. It wasn't like boom, boom, and he's on the ground, boom, boom, boom. You know, it's not like that.
Wait,
it's rapid.
Is it a book out here that I don't know about to tell you, like, the measure of force? Like, only 2 people at the moment would know the amount of force necessary.
Right. It's just reasonable. Whatever a reasonable person thinks, whatever the jury thinks is reasonable at the time. So they thought that as a 14-year-old, they're judging him, or they judged him as if he was an adult. But he's 14, and I'm not certain that they gave him due consideration of that fact. If I'm 6'2", so if somebody, I don't know, 7'8", that's 3 times my weight, is coming after me with a baseball bat, and I got access to a gun, or he's coming after some of my friends. Because you have a right in Maryland to defend yourself and defend others. You have an absolute right to do both. In order to defend yourself, you have to retreat. But even in shooting this man, he was retreating at the same time. To defend others, you don't have to retreat. You can go straight to the conflict. So, I respect the verdict because I always said manslaughter was the toss-up. I always said that from day one. I would think, and you might remember when we were talking about pleas in the very beginning of this case, they had offered him manslaughter in juvenile court. And I was like, okay, well, that's reasonable, because I always thought that would be a toss-up if someone determined that he was the shooter. And so I'm not terribly disappointed by the manslaughter charge, but I think after what's all said and done, and this guy he had all these tattoos over his body. One said, mutant and proud, as if it's the Proud Boys. He had other tattoos, a lone wolf on him. He had a tattoo across his chest that said something like, hatred is, what did it say? Something about hatred. You can Google it. Hatred something, but it's all across the collar of his neck. So he had a lot going on, and he had been on social media talking about squeaky kids have no right to be out there. Now, they're not begging for money. They're out there working. And although it's a nuisance to me. I'll tell you a funny story about the squeaky kids.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, I had my experience. I drive this, at times I drive a very expensive English motor car, okay? And I had my expensive English motor car on Conway, driving down, and a squeegee worker comes up to my car, asks me if he can squeegee my car. I say no, and he gets upset. And he draws a dick and balls on my motor car.
What?
The joker drew dick and balls on my Bentley. I was mad as shit, right?
Oh, no.
I was mad. I called 911. I said, that squeegee worker drew dick and balls on my Bentley. They say, what, sir? I say, you need the police. I need to go get these squeegee workers. You drew dick and balls on my Bentley. Then I thought about what I was saying, and I hung up. I hung up the phone. That's my squeegee experience. No bullshit. That's the truth. That's the truth.
Well, I drive a Lexus.
Yeah.
It's a fine automobile to me, too.
Yeah.
And the worst I got was a heart. I don't know what I would do with myself if they did that.
Yeah. It was terrible.
Oh, my God.
It was terrible. But, I got over it. And, and because that was just a bad apple. And we had seen each other since then. And he realized who I was and that I was defending one of his comrades. And we've been good. What I realized is that you don't have to pay him, just tell him, stay out of trouble, you're doing good. Give him a good attaboy, they don't mess with you.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, I said no, and I was nice, but I got a heart. Not
I don't want
dick
none
and
of
balls.
that.
I ain't want none of it either.
Not what?
Not dick and balls. Oh, my God, it sounds funny.
You sure did, man. I was
Dick and
mad.
balls.
Well, I was mad enough to chew chains, man. I was mad.
Oh, my goodness. I bet you were, because that's a fine
But
automobile.
I wasn't
You didn't have
so
a bat.
mad that I would stop, get out of my car with a baseball bat
Right.
and go after this kid.
Right.
So it takes you got to have a lot of something in you. It was hatred. I know it was alcohol fueled because he had alcohol in his system. And it's arguable as to whether or not it was above or below the legal limit. There's evidence that it was above the legal limit. There's evidence that it was below the legal limit. But there's no disputing that he had been drinking alcohol, and he was on mental health medication. Yeah, so he had all that mixed up, the confluence of all those things.
Yeah.
So that may have explained his behavior, but it doesn't excuse his conduct. And so I believe that he was the author of his own death. And that's what I argued to the jury.
Well, you were successful doing that, sir.
To a certain extent.
Yeah, well.
To a certain extent.
Hey, you go to war.
Yeah, hey, yeah. Look,
And you did that pro bono.
I did because I didn't like the way the media was treating him. I didn't like the comments that I was reading from racist white people. And I was thinking, this law stuff is a privilege. It's not something that I'm owed. And sometimes you have to give of yourself and your talent to help other people. And so I actually campaigned for that case because I really, really wanted it, because I really wanted to help this young man who was getting excoriated by the media. So I went on Facebook, and that's like, if anybody knows this young man or knows his family, have him call my office. I want to represent him. I'll do it for free.
Wow.
And stuff started coming in. Eventually somebody got in contact with the family. Was the mom or the father? The father or the grandmother contacted me. I brought him in, and that's how I was retained. And after I was retained, me and Warren had done something like this before. Warren Brown was another. Well, he's a Hall of Fame attorney in Maryland. Good friend of mine, and we've done pro bono work before, representing young men who get caught up in situations such as this that has very loud racial undertones to them. So I asked him if he wanted to get involved. He didn't hesitate. And that's how we became that duo. And that's how we ended up representing them. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And it's not the first time. Yeah, and I know you dumped a lot of resources in
We
it.
did, and it was a lot of discovery, a lot of stuff to do, but we never looked at it. We never once talked about how much money we were losing or not making by representing them. It was never a topic of conversation. It was always, let's win. It was always. That's why I like Warren. That's why I like working with Warren. Because it's never, once we make a decision that we're going to represent you, we don't care about money. We don't care about it. We just in there to do the work, get the job done.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the first time.
No.
You did it for a young lady. God forgive me, because she's passed on, but she's out of Randallstown in the Carriage Hill
Well, that
apartments.
wasn't pro bono.
Oh,
Yeah.
oops.
Yeah, we
Okay.
actually settled that one for a couple $1 million.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for
Well,
the family, and she deserved it.
mm-hmm.
What happened to her was nothing short of an execution.
Mm.
Assassination.
In front of her
depending on
children.
who you ask. In front of her, yeah.
Son.
Her 5-year-old son at
Yeah.
the time, who got shot as well.
What?
Yeah, his elbow got blown off, and he had to have reconstructive surgery on his
Oh,
elbow.
I didn't hear. I
And the
didn't hear
bullet
that.
shot him in the face.
Aw.
You know, fragments from the bullet hit him in the face. And they're still fighting. They're still fighting their half of it. We got a $37 million verdict as a result of what happened to her and him. In fact, the little boy who was 5 years old, he ended up with a $32 million verdict. My verdict was like 5 point something million. And when we got that verdict, the judge took it away from us. He basically granted the state's motion for judgment notwithstanding the verdict. And that's basically where the judge can take away your verdict, even though the jury says you can have it. He has authority to take it away if he felt as though the evidence didn't support it. And he contrived some excuse why the evidence didn't support it. The Court of Special Appeals smacked him down, sent the case back to him to get it right. So by the time it came back, I realized that we're not going to win this case in the court of law. It's going to be won in the court of public opinion. It was an election year, and Johnny O was running for re-election. I think he wanted to be governor or something. And at least at that time, he's since changed his mind and decided he wanted to be county executive for another term. But I started going the political route. And I threw up the cap, you know what I mean? I threw up the cap. I called on the NAACP, the National Action Network. I got my faith-based community out there with me, my activist community, my stakeholders. Even got the homeless community out there. I paid them some money to go picket in front of the county executive's office.
Really?
Yeah. Got the homeless folks out there. They was out there like 3 times.
You pulled out your whole deck of cards.
Yeah, and then I went nuclear and went up and got Al Sharpton down there, and that's when things changed. When I brought Al Sharpton down.
Wow, I don't know why I don't remember Al Sharpton.
Yeah, Al Sharpton, he came down here.
That's big.
I had Lanita Baker down here, who was Breonna Taylor's attorney. Yeah, so I pulled everybody who I knew to get a hold of, and that's what I learned out of that case, that we lawyers sometimes think that we're going to win some of these battles on our own because we used to be able to win in court, but things are changing. Courts are becoming more conservative. You're not really necessarily winning that day. You got to figure out other creative ways to win fights. And the most creative is to bring in your entire community, bring the village with you. If you bring the village with you, you got good chances. That's why when I was defending the squeegee kid, the young man who was washing windows, on my face, I do a lot of social media. So on my face, I'm inviting everybody down. Come down to see this trial. You need to see this trial. I want everybody to see it because that makes an impression on the judge. If the judge acts crazy, everybody sees it. They don't have to rely upon what the news says because the news is going to give you a slanted version of what they see. But people can say for them, say, oh, that judge was this, that judge was that. If they don't like the judge, or they say the judge was this, the judge was that, they like the judge. You know what I mean? So but everybody has an opinion, and they will voice their opinion, and they will get on social media and talk about what they think. I heard what the media said, but that's not true. I was right there. Blah, 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 blah,
That's actually
and they'll go to
smart.
bat for it.
That's smart.
Yeah. So I bring in the community. If I got a big case, I'm always bringing in the community. Always bringing in the community. And if it's something like that I need to settle, I'm gonna bring in my civil rights organizations, my stakeholders, my faith-based community, my activist community, black media, bring them all in. Yeah.
Community work is big, and just like you receive, you give. So is that something that, the mic fell?
You're going to be editing it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Can you repeat what I said?
No, we good. Okay. So, community work. Do you tackle it from both sides?
What do you mean?
You help, like the young man that we were talking about. That I
Yeah.
consider that as community work.
Yeah.
I don't know if that young man's father was in his life or not, but
Not much. He was in and out of jail. But he was very concerned about what was taking place with his son at that point in time. Yeah, he was there.
so when I say community work, I see it both ways because you're upstanding, you're respectable, and this young man has now got you in his corner, and he's learning from you.
Yeah, he did. He did. He was very humble. He was a great client to work with. Just an affable young man who has his whole life ahead of him. And I'm hopeful that the court will see some redemptive value in him because he has it. And he should have never been placed in that situation. And I'm talking about from the time that Mr. Reynolds got out of his car and thought about what he was going to do to these young kids. Walked across the street still thinking about what he was going to do. You know, if you ever want to talk about premeditation and deliberation, that was him. You know, if he had killed one of those kids, that would have been him. And he left his car engine running. Like he was going to go bat down some kids,
And
get in
keep
his
it
car,
moving.
keep it moving, get home in time for dinner. You know what I mean? With his family. With his family.
You mentioned mental health. Okay, so the young man, the squeegee worker, do you know if he's going to get any help while he's serving his time for this?
Well, it's unlikely that he will receive any treatment while he's in jail if he serves time in an adult prison. But if he's in juvenile, yeah, he'll get all kinds. There are all kinds of treatment options and programs available for him. That's why he should have never been tried as an adult. Because this is a young man that the state's attorney's office has decided they want to throw away. And that's why I feel like the community should step up and say, no, this young man is worthy of our services and resources. Because again, he wasn't out looking for anything. He didn't go around. He didn't go after Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds came after him and his buddies. And Mr. Reynolds was shot in the middle of completing a swing. You know what I mean? So, you know, it was, you know, that's why I fought for that. And that's why I just don't feel anything for it. You talk about us defense attorneys, sometimes we lack compassion. I just don't. And I was criticized for that. I was criticized for the lack of compassion. And I just don't feel it. I'm just being honest. I don't.
But at times you do.
At times,
just in
like
this
I've
instance.
had cases where I would express my sympathies. In fact, I did a murder case just prior to this one, where I expressed my sympathies to the family that they lost a loved one. But in that case, probably was almost as egregious as this one. In that case, their loved one shot at my client and missed. My loved one, I mean, not my loved one, my client he was just a better shot. And the same thing with Reynolds. Because he was unable to bat down all of these children, you know what I mean, they think that he deserves a pass and he should have lived. A bat is a deadly weapon. Somebody could swing a bat at you, or you could be sitting across where Chelsea is, and I could throw the bat, hit her in the forehead. She's out of here. So it doesn't matter whether he's 5 feet from you or 10 feet from you. That bat and his intention for his use of that bat made it a deadly weapon. And so it doesn't matter that he may or may not have been in arm's length, because he could throw that bat. And the kid really didn't have much room to retreat. If he retreated too far, he would have tripped on the curb. And look, if that guy had gotten his hands on this kid, he could have choked him out. So even without a bat, he presented, you know, a very dangerous situation for these children. I mean, we've seen people get choked out right before our very eyes on camera. So, you know.
Yeah. I worry about our children.
I do.
I have a 26-year-old daughter. She's not out, thank God, squeegeeing. She's upstanding, doing a great job, you know, but you still worry, you know, because we live in a different time.
That's right.
We do, and I feel like adults probably could be a lot more responsible in certain things. And
that's coming from, you know, and I hear you. and we kind of get that. We heard that argument before, but sometimes people come from like single parent households, and they're not the only kid in that house. Like it's maybe 3 or 4 other ones, and people talk about disciplining the parents or doing something against the parents. Well, you don't know what this parent could be giving her all to make sure all her kids are coming up and doing the right thing, and one of them slips away and does something crazy. They talk about lock the parents up. Well, who the fuck are you?
Right. Now, I wasn't going there.
Yeah.
I wasn't going there,
Yeah.
but I'm just talking about leading. That's all.
I mean,
and making decisions. And I don't want to talk about Mr. Reynolds and his death, but, you know, just using that as an example of how we have more sense in certain instances, and we should use it. You know, we should think
definitely.
twice about, you know, things that we do, things that we say, because I was taught that your sermon is always watched. It's taught.
Right.
People catch more than you teach. So, you know, just what we do is teaching a whole lesson sometimes, just
That's
our
right.
actions. And that's where I was coming from there. Because, no, I was brought up in a single parent household, and, you know, me and my brother took different routes.
Yeah.
So I totally understand. We
Yeah,
had the
and that's the
same
thing.
love, you know, same everything.
Same everything.
You know, but it boils down to choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't going there at all.
Yeah. So I was actually just speaking in general because we heard some of those arguments in this case. Oh, the mother should be doing it. They should lock the mother up. You know, people say stuff
That's
like
crazy.
that. That's what people say.
That's
what people say.
yeah, it's still crazy.
Yeah, so,
it's still crazy.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And then back on this Reynolds stuff, you know, they're so quick to excuse his egregious conduct.
Yeah. But
Like they forget. They don't even want to talk about all the mess that he was doing.
yeah, it was a lot. But you know, I'm staying in the middle.
That's fine. That's
now,
where you're supposed to be.
And staying in the middle, I want to ask about stress relief. You are into it. You're into these heavy, thought-provoking things. You're making decisions, you know, to help someone.
You're making me stressing me out right now.
Oh, come on
'Cause
now.
I don't know that. I don't know that when I'm going through it.
it.
I'm just making decisions.
So when you
and
go
doing,
home, you're not like, whew, thank goodness that day's over.
No,
Come on now, Jay.
I don't think about it like that. You know, things got to get done, and that's what I think about. But when you say it the way you say it, and I reflect upon what I'm doing, it you know, you make me feel.
You should. You're doing a lot. I got a degree in business and finance. I'm stressed over that, man. and that's just reconciling monthly stuff. I mean, it's a big job, but still, it's not to your level, and that stresses me out. So, you know, I do different things to counter that.
Well, I try to do different things, and some things get to me. Like, for instance, I'm going through an issue with my child and his mother. She's been alienating him for 65 days over this summer, and I had him from the 9th through the 27th of August, and when I returned him, she's back to alienating him again, so we got to go back to court on September 15th. That bothers me. Like, nothing else has bothered me than that, because it
Not
hurts
to cut
him.
you off, but you this big, fine, and I'm married, y'all, but this big, fine man, you know, from the outside, you look like, you know, you clicking, got it all
Yeah.
going on.
No, I ain't got it
But
all
for you
going
to
on.
say that,
Yeah.
for you to say that, I mean, you're human.
Yeah, I got, you know, it hurts. It hurts, and but I'm working through it. Luckily for me, I know the process, so I know that I'm going to get where I need to be. It's just going to take a while, and I try to explain that to my son, because I remember one thing that he said when I took him back on the 27th. He said, "Daddy, when you return me to mommy, when will I see you again?"
Did that break your heart?
Yeah.
It just broke mine.
Yeah, and I couldn't answer the question. I couldn't answer it.
Why though? You don't have
Because I don't
custody?
know. No,
I mean, like
that's what
visitation.
we're fighting for.
No, visitation.
No, we don't have nothing. We got those 17 days, and then they just said, y'all work it out.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so, you know,
And you're an attorney.
well, that's what I got going for me. It might help me, it might hurt me, you know what I mean? Who knows? But I'm going to be in there fighting.
Well, I'll be
Yeah.
praying for you for sure.
I appreciate that.
That's real selfish. back to my point about adults. You know, sometimes the way we choose to adult
True.
is not
and
so cool.
We should be old enough for our wants not to hurt.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not to hurt. And what hurts me the most is him and how he's hurting. That's what bothers me. You know, me, I'll be all right. I'm gonna be all right. But him, you never know what impact that has. So I always try to be honest with him when I talk to him, and I knew that she would probably not take my phone calls and not let me talk to him, and true to form, she's doing it again. And so we'll have to deal with it. The good thing about it is, like, September 15th is like 2.5 weeks
It's around
away.
the corner, yeah.
So we'll live, we'll survive, and it's something that happened on that day.
So even talking about that, I know it's heavy on your heart, but
Well, it helps me to talk about it.
and
that I don't carry it.
right, and that's the whole purpose of Hidden Parts, by the way.
And I want people to know about it because I'm not the only person that's going through it. And as I've been talking about it, people have been coming out of the woodwork telling me that they've been going through it. And so I understand that this is a big problem. I've been talking to my elected officials about it, and in this session coming up, I'm gonna try to put some laws on the book.
That's good.
And I think that's how you handle it. You know, so if it's gonna be me, hopefully I'll be one of the last ones.
That's big. So do you have any advice for someone that might be, woman or man, going through the same thing that you're going through?
Don't give up. Don't give up. And join me in the struggle. I mean, I'm going to change. Something's going to happen in Maryland and in D.C. I know elected officials in both places. My son happens to live in D.C. I'm going to start with Maryland because I'm most familiar with Maryland. But I'm going to move my way to D.C.
Okay. And I can help out any way you need me to. Like I told you, my child is grown, but you know, I'm everybody's auntie.
I believe that.
Everybody loves me as their auntie. I think I'm gonna get a T-shirt to say "favorite auntie."
That's all right.
We've been chopping it up for a long time, so I don't want to hold you much longer.
I'm good.
I really appreciate it. So what's next?
So what's next for me is really focusing on this National Bar Association, this vice presidency. It's very important that I use this platform to advocate on behalf of black lawyers nationwide, because there are a lot of things going on today that we really need to be speaking out about. I don't think we're doing enough. We have issues with, you know, you got Trump, you got Florida, you got affirmative action, all of these issues that are just attacking us left and right. And it seems like we've been lulled to sleep. We're not outraged about anything, at least not outwardly outraged. And I just feel like you need to see more lawyers out here fighting for us than our beloved Ben Crump, personal friend of mine. He's excellent at what he does, and nobody will ever replace him. But I think there's also room for others who can come in and, you know, advocate on behalf of our people and articulate a position that we care about. And so me as vice president, that's what I want to do. With this platform, in addition to raise the membership in our organization. Our organization was established in 1925, so it's almost 100 years old. In 2025, this is 2023, it's going to be 100 years old. And in order to last another 100 years, we're going to have membership. And, you know, and we're definitely going to have to increase that. So I want to help with that. I want to help with just letting this country understand that black lawyers are still out here, we're still fighting, and we're doing a damn good job.
You
Doing
are.
a damn good job.
You are, and my hat goes off to you.
Thank you.
I can see your passion, your sweat and passion. No,
I appreciate
seriously,
that.
they don't call you the warrior lawyer
That's
for
right.
nothing.
That's right.
And I feel it just
Thank you.
coming off of you.
Thank you.
Yes. So the other thing that I wanted to go back and talk to you about, was mental health, right? Coming up, it was taboo for me.
Sure. For everybody.
Yeah. So
You're supposed to go to church.
you're supposed to go to church,
With
pray to
Jesus
God
on
about
it.
it. That's
Jesus
right.
on it.
But I did want to ask you, and if I'm being intrusive,
Yes.
I want to ask you: Do you seek therapy? Do you deal with a
Not
lot?
right now. See, I don't feel like, it probably sound like I'm crazy, but I don't
No,
feel
you
like.
don't sound like you're crazy. You sound like you got a lot to
I
juggle.
don't feel like, I'm not stressed, aside from my boy. But I understand the process. I trust the process. I pray about it, And I know God's got it because I know I'm a good man. I know I'm a good father. And even if me being a good man is debatable, you can't debate that I'm a good father. And so so I just know that that's going to be okay. And he's 8. If I have to lose a year in this fight, next year we're going to be straight for the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to the rest of his life more so than what's going on right here, right now. I'm looking at the long term. I got vision for the future, and I have a vision for him to be happy and us to be happy together. And so we just have to, you know, how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. So it's just one bite at a time.
I have mad respect for you and that approach. You know, that's real strong back of you.
I wouldn't know it if I didn't do it. If I wasn't in this business, I wouldn't know it. Every day would be fearful and fraught with anxiety. But you know, my God's got me.
Hey.
My God's got me.
Hey. Mm-hmm. Well, everybody, you heard it from Jay himself. Mm-hmm. I want to thank you for giving me this time.
Absolutely.
And I don't take it for granted. I really appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you for the invitation. I don't take that for granted.
And you're welcome back at any time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Hidden Parts. I'm Shawn Monet. This is The Warrior Lawyer, J. Wyndal Gordan. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe, like, follow, and come back.
And follow me too, Warrior Lawyer on Instagram, J. Wyndal Gordan on Facebook.
All right. My name is Shawn Monet. I have a podcast, actually, and it's called Hidden Parts. The technical name is Hidden Parts, the podcast with Shawn Monet. Hidden Parts because, you know, the focus for most people, you and I, we are visual people. So from the outward, we always want ourselves together. You know, from head to toe, we're tight. And that is the focal point for everyone. But we neglect the inside. And I thought about that over and over again, basically about myself, how I've experienced so many things, but every morning I have to get up and go out in the world, and I have to portray this perfect person when inside I may just have concerns. I may be sad, you know, a number of things, but I suppress it because, you know, when you're out in the world, you have to look the part. The podcast itself would be me talking to people about various topics. They can help people with their mental health challenges, whether it be self-esteem, we'll talk about it. So talking made me realize that, you know, I'm not the only one out here with these feelings, and I bet you talking about different topics would help people. And I prayed about this thing, and I prayed about this thing, and he said, stop hiding. You're not the only one, and you need to share that. So that's my mission, to share the fact that we all hide, and we don't have to. Make sure you use my hashtag, The Hidden Parts Podcast, when sharing on all social media platforms. You can also follow me on mine, Instagram and Facebook, The Hidden Parts Podcast. You can listen to other episodes on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, or any other platform where you find your favorite podcast. If you want to watch, log on to my website, www.the-inner.me. Take care, stay blessed, and remember, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Well, images take some vision and some thought to put together, and that one was done by a longtime friend of mine, Calvin Watkins. Calvin's up there. He's humble. Calvin, please give him a hand. He did a phenomenal job. He's a filmmaker, something I do as well outside of my role with Fox 45.